Hi everyone, welcome to the TriEssence martial art channel. So first off, I'd like to give you guys an update that we're in South Africa here. We've been on lockdown for 2 months, but unfortunately a lot of people just simply ignore the lockdown protocols. So even though there's been 2 months of lockdown and in theory the virus spread should have been in control, the reality is that a lot of people didn't go by the protocols, so the virus is still spreading pretty badly. I think there's still like 700 new cases every day or something like that. So it's still gonna be a while before it's safe to go out and socialize with people. So I hope wherever you are, your country is doing a better job than South Africa. Unfortunately, South Africa is just one of those less organized countries where its people doesn't really understand the risk involved and the risk of the action. And the government also lacks the funding and the manpower to enforce a lockdown upon people. So anyway, so those other videos that require a partner will still have to wait for quite a while. I can't really say by when. Right? The new figure projections suggest that the peak of the virus spreading will be somewhere in September. I mean, if that is true, it's gonna be a long way to go. I hope it's not. I hope the thing will choke down a bit faster than that or sooner than that. But yeah, there's nothing I can do at the moment. So I do hope everyone is still safe and healthy and staying away from crowded places and being patient about everything. So this is our third part on the second episode of Fact or Fiction, where we were talking about the possible origin of Taichi. Now again, I would like to first restate, right? I'm gonna clarify again that I personally do not think this whole who founded Taichi, who invented Taichi is important at all, right? I personally don't see any point in investing time and effort in this. That time is much better put into practice and getting better, right? I mean, who cares who invented Taichi? What matters is what can you do, right? Do you represent Taichi? Can you do what Taichi is meant to do? That is more important than anything else. However, like I said in my previous video as well, there are a lot of individuals and organizations and parties and whatnot that are gaining a lot of benefit and monetary gains from spreading lies and spinning tales on the origin of Taichi. This is the only reason why I think it is important to clarify all these claims and to realize how legit or illegit they are. And sadly, in today's martial art world, more people, not just Taichi, but in other Chinese martial art styles as well, right? More people are interested in spending time arguing who is the more authentic lineage than actually going to practice and then using the action to prove they are the better practitioner, which I think is really stupid. And a lot of these people actually upsets me a lot, right? All my challenge matches and duels and fights in China, at least half of them are resulted of people who are making false claims or who are stepping on other styles or lineages to promote their own, right? I really dislike that. For example, the one altercation that I had 2 years ago, I think, was in Purple Bamboo Park, where a guy was promoting Chen family small frame form. And my Taichi brother was interested, so we not to learn, just to check out what other people do, right? We don't need to learn from these other people. We have our own master and all that. But yeah, he's interested to see what other people do. So we went there, we had a chat, and the guy's like, yeah, Chen style small frame is the best, right? Even my master, when we go back to the Chen village, everybody crowd make a line in front of his house trying to learn it. Big frame is nothing, small frame is all. And I got quite offended. I don't even represent Chen style. I just feel that kind of action is very dishonest and annoying, right? I mean, why step on another style? I mean, it's cool that you want to promote your own style and say how good you are, but why step on others, especially on another branch of Chen style? That is really bad, which is why I asked him, what can you do with it? Can you push hand, this and that? And I wanted to push hand with him, and he didn't want to. Eventually turned around and walked away. There was another guy from Shanghai who does Xingyi, Hebei style, and he constantly criticizes how Song style sucks and this and that. And when I look at his own Xingyi, it's a lot worse than the Song people that I personally know. So I also got into an altercation with him. So I kind of don't like people doing that. And this happens a lot in Taichi as well. For example, the Zhao Bao people. I mean, I don't have anything against them personally, but I do dislike I don't know how many people in Zhao Bao believe that or claim that, but there is a prominent claim where they want to prove that they are the original source of Taichi and that the Chen village learned from them, and therefore they are not as authentic and they don't even learn everything completely, which they claim is why Wu Yuxiang went to Chen Qingping eventually to learn, right? Because they suggest that because they actually have the more complete system than Chen village. And following that, they also suggest that therefore Wu Yuxiang is actually more complete than Yang Luchan. And then they say that Yang Banhou, right, Yang Luchan's second son, studied from Wu Yuxiang, and therefore Yang Banhou is actually better than his father. And the invincible Yang actually is referring to Yang Banhou, not Yang Luchan. That's obviously wrong because it contradicts every other source that you can find in Beijing. And furthermore, I find that very, very disrespectful to the Yang family and to the Wu Yuxiang family. I'm pretty sure if Wu Yuxiang was alive, he would not like people to trash talk the Yang family. But that kind of behavior is very common within the martial art world, right? They promote this whole false agenda and criticism because they want to prove that their lineage is more authentic. The Chen family actually learned bits and pieces from them, but they're the more complete system. And in doing so, they are trying to change the known history of what happens with the Taichi development within Beijing. And I find that very, very offensive, right? Just to give you one example of how certain organization, individual, beneficial parties trying to manipulate the truth in order to gain more monetary and reputation gains. That is the only reason why I think it's important to understand this, right? It's because of people like that. Otherwise, I really couldn't care less who invented Tai Chi. It's irrelevant. What matters is what can you do personally. Anyway, so today we're going to discuss. In the last part we discussed about Zhang Sanfeng, which perhaps is one of the biggest claim to the founding of Tai Chi, at least in the outsiders community, right? If you ask a non-practitioner in China, 9 out of 10 they will say Zhang Sanfeng because that's what the popular media say, that's what pop culture say, that's what movies say, that's what novels say, that's what all of these TV series say. So everyone knows about Zhang Sanfeng. So he's the most popular, but he has a very close contender, which is Chen village. All right. So if you ask practitioner, right, rather than outsiders, then I always say that the opinion goes half 50-50. Half believe Zhang Sanfeng founded, another half believe Chen family founded. Of course, there are other claims in more recent years, in the past 2 decades, other claims as well, such as Zhao Bao and some other. We're going to go through what Zhao Bao we're going to talk about today. The other claim we're going to talk at a later stage. But Zhang Sanfeng and Chen family are the most predominant claims to the founding of Tai Chi. Now, those of you who have been paying attention in the previous video, who picked up the importance of Li Yiyu, right, and his Lao Sanben, the O3 text or the O3 volume, O3 book, depending on how you want to translate it, will realize that pretty much his own manuscript or his own classic, it basically already proven that none of these claims are completely true. So obviously you would maybe wonder why we still need to continue to discussing about other claims. The point is to better understand where they're coming from and which part of the claim can be true and which part of the claim is impossible, right? So even though it's clearly stated by Li Yiyu that they don't know who the founder is, I think there's still some value in discussing about these claims, because obviously these guys who claim them today would all try to discredit Li Yiyu's writing. So just based on his writing alone, sometimes it's not enough evidence, although I think it should be enough, because first of all, Li Yiyu has no reason to lie, right? He does not stand to gain anything from his writing. At the time, this lineage, the Wu Yuxiang Li Yiyu lineage, does not teach outsiders, so they don't have any monetary gain. And secondly, Li Yiyu was in a position to get first-hand info from Yang Luchan and from Wu Yuxiang, and indirectly getting info from the Chen village and Zhao Bao village, Chen Qingping. Therefore, he is one of the person who's in the best position to know the truth. Compared to any of the other claims which all happened in more recent years, he's the first person in the history that we know of actually put the stuff in writing, and he is in a position to know what he's saying. That's why I believe his text is very, very important. Perhaps the most important evidence. But to a lot of other people, that's not enough, which is why we're still going to examine other claims and see other, besides Li Yu's contradiction, what other problem can be found with these other popular claims. Okay, so first of all, I think I will just read the original piece from Li Yu's 老三本 and just briefly, give a rough translation so that we have a better baseline of his writing, right? I'm gonna have to read through the screen and the camera's in the front, so just excuse my positioning. Okay, so basically, in Li Yu's own writing, he says, 太极拳不知始于何人，其精微巧妙，王宗岳论，详且尽矣。后传至河南陈家沟陈姓，神而名者，大不数人。我郡南关杨某爱而往学也。Alright, so basically for those who don't speak Chinese, which I assume is most of my viewers, what that basically says is that first sentence he says, we don't know who invented Taichi, but its intricacy and its depths were all captured in the Wang Zongyue's classic. Now, this is a point where a lot of people have an argument, right? People often think that because of this, Li Yu actually validated Wang Zongyue being the person who passed Taichi to the Chen family. However, the way I see it, especially from the wording, he referred to Wang Zongyue Lun, which basically is Wang Zongyue's writing. So he's basically saying that Taichi's intricacy and this in-depth understanding were all captured within the Taichi classic. Okay, it doesn't actually mean here he's referring to the person, he's referring to the person's writing. And some of you might think, yeah, but that's maybe the same thing. However, he has never actually seen Wang Zongyue. So he in no way would know whether Wang Zongyue is real or not. He only has a Taichi classic, which he got from his uncle Wu Yuxiang. So in the text, he refers to that classic, not to the person, right? We're going to talk about the person a bit more later. So I don't believe this line validates Wang Zongyue being the person who passed down Taichi into this whole system. That may or may not happen, but we don't know. We can't say for sure just based on this text. But he certainly does not have enough info to know that. And he says, so later it was at some point it was passed to Henan Chen village, to the Chen family. 神而名者 means people who are at the top of their ability, right, who completely mastered this style. There is only a few every generation, so that suggests that not a lot of people in the Chen village actually mastered this art. It's only kept to a selective few. And lastly, he says, someone from the same county as himself, with the surname of Yang, was really interested and went to learn it, etc., etc. So that's pretty much what he says about the origin of Taichi. We're going to keep that in mind when we're going to examine today's episode. Alright, so according to the Chen village's claim, right, the founder of Taichi and basically their family martial art, because they believe that Taichi all came from their family, so the founder of their own family martial art is a guy called Chen Wangting. I'm gonna just write him up here. Hope you can still see. So it's Chen Wangting. Okay. So Chen Wangting is one of the ancestors, not the first one who established the village, like some people, claimed. He's actually not the first one to found the Chen village, but he's one of the earlier ancestors in the family tree. However, if you look historically, like when this person's name first get mentioned in books, right, we find that it was not mentioned by Yang Luchan, Wu Yuxiang, Li Yu, or any of the people at that period, right? Funny enough, it was first mentioned in a book by someone way down here who is around the same period as Wu Jianquan, maybe a bit older than him, but they live. The guy is a guy called Chen Xin, and he lives from the late Qing dynasty to the early Republic era, right? So I'm gonna just write his name down here. Chen Xin. Okay. So this guy, he's the first one who writes a collective book about the Chen family, right? He's from the Chen family, he lives in the village, so he's the first one to actually write a book about the Chen family stuff. And in there he mentions Chen Wangting as the founder of Taichi. Now his theory was also basically collaborated on and agreed upon by a guy called Tang Hao. Right? Tang Hao is basically a so-called martial art historian of the Republic era, but his work is quite controversial. There are people who completely disagree with him and dislike his stuff and say that his research is incorrect and untrustworthy. We're not going to go into too much detail on how credible Tang Hao is, but just know that Tang Hao pretty much supported Chen Xin's theory. Another person who did that was Gu Liusheng, right? He's also an influential writer at the time, and a Taichi practitioner, so he also supports Chen Xin's theory. The important thing here is that, first of all, Chen Xin himself does not do Taichi, nor does he do Chen family martial art. He's not a martial art practitioner at all, and he is in no way related to the actual Chen Changxing branch, right? The direct descendant of Chen Changxing. He's not part of that family either. He is, however, a well-educated man, perhaps the most well-educated person in the Chen village at the time. He ran a private school there, and he taught young people how to read and write. So he's well-educated, and the only one at the time who is in a position and has the ability to write a book about whatever the village wants to write about, right? So he's the first one who mentioned that Chen Wangting was the founder of Chen family martial art. The problem to that, though, is that, first of all, he himself is not a historian. He's educated, he can read and write, but he's not an historian, so he doesn't actually understand the proper method of research and validating information. For example, he claimed that Chen Wangting was a Ming Dynasty general, okay? However, and that's actually the story that a lot of the Chen family members go by, even in recent age. I remember back in the 90s when I first watched like a promotional video from the Chen village, they still claim that the ancestor Chen Wangting was a Ming Dynasty general who was quite famous, etc., etc. And upon retiring from the battlefield, he came back to Chen village and then invented Taichi. Right, that is the official story they went by for many, many years, probably ever since Chen Xin wrote about it. However, in more recent research, people has disproven that theory. There was a Chen Wangting during the Ming Dynasty, but that Chen Wangting was born in Fujian province, not Henan, and nowhere near Chen village. So he had the same name, he is a general, but he has zero to do with the Chen family. And when Chen Xin founded that record, he didn't do enough historical research to realize that person only shared the same name, but is not the same person as the ancestor of the Chen village. And that goes to show how untrustworthy Chen Xin's research method and writing can be. While I'm not saying everything he says is wrong, but based on this, you should take everything he writes with a grain of salt, if not more. Okay, so in reality, the Chen village version of Chen Wangting was someone who was born in the early Qing dynasty, right? Not even in the same period. And he was not a military general. What he was a student who went to the military examination and he passed the first entry exam. So he is like almost like graduated from primary school, if we put into a more modern context, right? Back then they called it Wu Xiucai or Wu Yang, something like that. So I can't remember the exact terminology, but it's basically the first entry examination. And after that, he got into a fight with the examiner, right? The person who runs the exam. Some stories say that because the examination was unfair, some say the guy was bullying some poor people. we don't really know for sure, but he definitely had an altercation with the examiner, and therefore was forced to flee, and therefore he cannot compete in the further examination. That's why he didn't advance further on. So that's not to say that he wasn't good enough to go further, right? He just couldn't keep his temper in check, and therefore he couldn't continue with examination. But either way, he's definitely not a general, and he didn't even get a position in the Qing military division, right? He was basically struck out because he became an outlaw, so to speak. Now the reason they picked, or Chen Xin and maybe other people at the time picked Chen Wangting as the founder is because he is pretty much the most famous person out of the Chen village who actually went to the big city and did something, right? He attained the first level of military examination. You know, you got to remember back in the days, not a lot of people are educated and take imperial exams. So whether it's military or academic, scholarly, passing the first entry exam is a huge deal for a little village, right? Even for scholarly like a 秀才. Oh yeah, I think the military one is called 无养人. I think it's called that. Anyway, so in the scholarly one you have 秀才, which is equivalent of, you know, graduation from primary school in modern standard. But back in the days, 秀才 is really a big deal in a small village like the Chen village. So that is why, despite Chen Wangting's lack of achievement in the grand picture of things, he's one of the most famous person in the family. And if you were to set up a founder for your martial arts, you naturally want to go to someone who is the most famous, who stands out, right? Just like every style attaches itself to some mythical, legendary, or famous figure. It doesn't attach itself to an unknown person. And Chen Wangting being the most known person, naturally they attach him as the founder. Now, whether Chen Wangting could have founded the Chen style martial arts or not is uncertain. There's not enough information on it. So I'm not saying he couldn't. He very well could. But we don't have info to prove that he definitely did. But also not info to suggest that he didn't, right? However, if it's just on Chen Xin's word, it cannot be trusted completely. Now, the thing here is that even if Chen Wangting founded the Chen family martial art, it does not mean he is the founder of Taichi, because within the entire Chen family martial arts manuscript, they did not mention the martial art as Taichi. So, even if he's the founder of the martial art, which maybe is the case, right? Like I said, I don't really know. But even if it is the case, if they have no text suggesting that it is Taichi, then he cannot be the founder of Taichi. Because even though Yang family, Yang Luchan, learned from the Chen family, Yang's martial art changed quite a lot compared to the Chen style, right? We'll talk about this a bit in the last episode. You can see the sequencing of the form, the placement of the motion, right? Where they move, where they step, that is come from the same source, but Yang style no longer look like Chen style, so it kind of changed into something on its own. So if the name Taichi was not found in the Chen family's record, then they can't be the founder, right? It's almost like if you think about Xingyi. We all know that Li Luoneng learned from Shanxi Dai family, but he changed it, right? Dai family Xingyi and Li Luoneng's Xingyi do not look the same. They share same principles. They have the same move names, like the 5 elemental fist and some of the animal forms. They share those names. But if you look at the actual Piquan in Dai family, it does not look like the Piquan in Xingyi. The Pi Beng Zhuan Pao Heng, all 5 elements, all the animals, they do not look even remotely similar. Okay, you can see similar body mechanic, a similar concept, but it's not the same motion. So therefore, Li Luoneng was the founder of Xingyi. You cannot say Shanxi Dai family is the founder of Xingyi. They're probably not even the founder of Xingyi. They probably learned Xingyi from somewhere else. But the point is, they represented Xingyi. Li Luoneng learned Xingyi and made it into Xingyi, and therefore he is the founder of Xingyi. So, in the same context, if Chen family did not name their art Taichi, then they can't be the founder of Taichi. They can be the influence, the original source that eventually led to Yang Luchan coming up with the concept of Taichi, right? They can be not arguing that Yang Luchan learned from Chen Changxing, but it does not mean that they are the founder of Taichi. So the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that later on, right, because pretty much Chen Changxing taught Yang Luchan, but he did not leave Chen village, nor did his son and his grandson. So to the rest of the world, what they can see is from Yang Luchan and then Wu Yuxiang, Wu Quanyou, etc., etc., until way later on, right, around the same period as, actually a bit later, I think it was in the between 1910 and 1920. I don't remember the exact date. I mean, if you're interested, you can look it up. Around that period, Wu Jianquan and Yang Chengfu, right, they both left Beijing. They went to the south because there's more money there. They went to Shanghai, and then later on the Wu family went even further south. So Beijing becomes a vacancy for Taichi practitioner, and that's why the community got together and they're like, you know what? The Yang family originally learned this from the Chen family, right? So let's go to Chen family and find someone to come and teach us. So they sent a representative to the Chen family, and that's when Chen Fake, right, was invited to teach in Beijing. Now, upon arrival, Chen Fake did not claim that he taught Taichi. It is said that he quoted Chen family first and also referred to the second portion of it as Pao Chui, canon first. He did not use the term Taichi originally. So the reason that now everyone uses Taichi is because the phrase Taichi is just so popular, right? You get instant recognition if you call your style Taichi, and that's pretty much why Chen family eventually start calling their style also, they call the Chen family Taichi. But originally, when Chen Fake, the first Chen member to teach in Beijing, his nephew taught in Beijing first, right? Chen Zhaopei, but he didn't really get anywhere. There's not a lot of people who want to learn from him, so that's why he left as well. So basically, the Taichi community first got hold of Chen Zhaopei. Chen Zhaopei came to teach in Beijing, but there was a lot of conflicting stories. Some say he didn't teach well, some say he lost to a duel, some say he got other things to do in other provinces, so he eventually left. He taught for a very short period of time and he left. And upon leaving, he told them that, my uncle, which is far better than myself, you should invite him. And that's how they got Chen Fake to come to Beijing. And when he first came here, he did not call his style Taichi. And when asked about who is the founder, he did not say Chen Wangting, right? He says that it's always been taught in his family. He has no idea who founded it. He just knows that it's been passed down in his Chen family for generations. And again, he has no reason to lie. And the fact that he didn't know about Chen Wangting means that is not a widely known fact among the Chen village at the time. Otherwise, being the direct descendant of Chen Changxing, Chen Fake should have known that Chen Wangting was the founder, and he would have said so. And again, once again, we go back to Li Yiyu, that he would mention his name too, but he did not. So whether Chen Wangting invented Chen village style is questionable at best. And also the fact that they didn't have any name associated with Taichi in the text or by Chen Fake's original claim would suggest that the name Taichi was not invented by the Chen family. Most likely it was invented by Yang Luchan. Okay, Yang Luchan, when he first came to Beijing, he actually called his style Mianquan, right? Continuation first. Mian, not in cotton. Some people translate it to cotton first, but it's actually the wrong character. They both called Mian, but the Mian that Yang Luchan uses refer to Mian Mian Bu Duan, means a constant flow that doesn't stop. Okay, he called it Mianquan, the continuing first, if you give a crude translation. Obviously later on, that's not a very cool name. You want to have a better name, and that's probably why he came out with the name Taichi. Another theory is that after Wu Yuxiang retrieved the Taichi classic, that's when he called it Taichi. We don't really know why, but we can be pretty certain, right? Not 100%, but fairly certain, that Yang Luchan was the first person to call the style Taichi. It was not the Chen family, and was not the Zhaobao village. And today we don't have any real evidence of the name Taichi Quan ever being written down before Yang Luchan's time. I mean, of course, if you just do a rough research, there are people who claim they have sources, but most of those sources that people can get hand on has been just proven to be false or doctrinated by people later on. No one can provide a genuine, original, historical source that claims of Taichi Quan. And of course, just appearing the phrase Taichi is not good enough because it is a commonly used phrase in Taoism, in philosophy, in astrology, in medicine, in a lot of areas in the Chinese culture. So it can appear in all kinds of places. So just having a text that has the phrase Tai Chi is not good enough evidence to suggest that refers to the actual martial arts that Yang Luchan does. Okay, another thing that we need to look at is, does the Chen style encompass the same essence as the Yang style? I mean, like I said, we can see that the Yang style came from Chen style. There's no denying on that. But when you find a style, right, whether you can classify your own style, whether what you do can be classified as that style. Let's say Yang Luchan founded Tai Chi, and you want to see if your style can also be classified as Tai Chi. You have to check that based on Yang Luchan's definition of Tai Chi. And although Chen style and Yang style share similar principles, it also has contradictions to each other. Right, the Chen style does not it's not completely the same as Yang style in many areas. Although Wu Yuxiang, Wu Quanyou, and later on Sun Lutang, the Tai Chi also changed. But if you look at them as a whole, these four has more similarity among themselves than any of them have with Chen style. Okay, which even by principle, the Chen style, although is the ancestor of Yang style or Tai Chi, it cannot be called Tai Chi because they don't share the exact same principles. And which is why when Chen Fake first came to Beijing and people invited him into a gathering and did a demonstration, everyone present who learned from either Wu Jianquan or Yang Chengfu, some of them even learned from Yang Jianhou, or some of the older person like Xu Yusheng, who learned from the sixth generation of Yang family. They all saw that what Chen Fake did was not Tai Chi, because it does not show the same principles. They were actually ready to send him home. Right? The problem is, it's a long journey from Chen village to Beijing, so they can't just let him do one demo and send him home. That's considered as rude. So Xu Yusheng and other people who are in charge, they suggest that let's do a few lessons from him, get to know him. And after a few lessons, we're gonna ask for a push hand, experiment. And if he can't do push hand, then we'll just send him home. We'll stop learning from him. But obviously later on, they all lost to Chen Fake and eventually decided to become his faithful disciple. So Chen Fake, when he came to Beijing, he converted a lot of Yang style and Wu style practitioners into Chen style, right? Including famous people like Li Jingwu was one of it, and there were a few others, I can't remember on top of my head. So he did proven that his push hand and his fighting ability were top tier. So I have nothing against Chen style, the genuine Chen style. I have a lot of respect for Chen Fake, and obviously a lot of respect for Chen Changxing. But the point is, they are not exactly the same as Tai Chi, and they should, therefore, in my opinion, they should be classified as an ancestor of Tai Chi, rather than a branch of Tai Chi. And you might think, okay, but he did one push hand. Yes, but obviously that's because he's such a superior practitioner. But how he won his push hand is different from how the Yang family would have won the push hand, right? So they all do push hand, but it's done in different principles and different approach. It's almost like Yi Quan also does push hand, but you can't say Yi Quan is Tai Chi. They just all do push hand, but the principle they use, the power they use, the body mechanics they use, and the way they win are not the same. Okay, so even though Chen Fake was good at push hand, it still doesn't mean what he does is exactly in line with Yang family. And if Yang Luchan was the one who named the style Tai Chi, then Chen family doesn't have the claim to be the founder of Tai Chi. But again, like I keep saying, it doesn't take away the credibility of being the ones who passed the original martial art to Yang Luchan, and who basically Yang Luchan based his understanding on in order to invent Tai Chi, right? So they still have great credit, to the founding of Taichi, but I don't think they can claim to be the founder of Taichi. Alright, so without giving too much technicality, because obviously this isn't a video on techniques or martial motions, it's a historical fact and fiction video. So I'm gonna try not to go into too much technicality, but I'm just gonna give you a few examples on the difference, right? The fundamental difference between Yang style and Chen style, to better illustrate my point that why Chen style can't be considered a derivative of Tai Chi if Yang Luchuan named the system, and if he should be taken as the definition of Tai Chi, right? If what Yang Luchuan taught is named Tai Chi and therefore it is a definition of Tai Chi, why is Chen style should not be considered Tai Chi, right? So first of all, one of the most famous power that we practice in Chen style is called the soak reading force, right? In Chinese we call it 禅思力. That basically is the whole heart and core of Chen style. Everything they do, they're basically trying to train that force in every motion. It should be found in everything Chen style do, which is why if you look at good Chen style masters, right, their body is constantly talking and rotating. Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with it, you can check out Chen Zhonghua's video, right? He is one of the best Chen style masters that I personally consider. So check his video if you don't know what I'm saying, and if you watch his video but you don't understand what you're looking at, I have a video on the 4 fundamental forces of internal, one of which is rotational force, where I briefly give example on how Chen style do rotation. So the heart of Chen style is the soak reeling force. So in the entire form, once you understand what soak reeling force is, and you look at the entire form, you can see that the entire form is designed to train that force in various motion, angle, position, etc. Right? Whenever they do something, they're always rotating the hand this way, rotating the hand that way. If you take the first motion, I probably can't see so well here, but if you see the basic training, right? The positive circle and negative circle, you can see that it's rotation this way and rotation that way, or rotation this way and rotation that way. So it's constantly trying that spiral force, right? I mean, commonly we should call it spiral force, but for them it's called the soak reading force. However, if you look at the Yang style, soak reading force is not there at all. They don't even talk about it or something similar, right? They don't have a term soak reading or something that is similar to soak reading. So this whole concept is not found in the Yang family Tai Chi, which means fundamentally the core force that defines the style are fundamentally different. And if you look at the Yang family's form, you see that there are rotations once here and there, but overall they are pretty plain, right? It's almost like a ball rather than a thing that twists and turns. And so basically, if you look at the Chen style motion, is more linear, right? I don't mean linear in a line, but even if they have a circle, it's a linear circle like that. They're aiming at an direction in an angular way, whereas the Yang style is more of a roundish structure. I mean, they do have punches, which is angular, but a lot of the other motion are more roundish. And for them, the most important thing is the expansion force, right? The first of the 8 forces of Tai Chi, Peng. So Yang style, and as well as by extension the Wu style, Wu Yuxiang's lineage, and then eventually Sun style. Sun style not so much, he has Xingyi and Bagua influence, but Yang style and Wu style particularly, and to some extent Wu Yuxiang's He style, Hao style, what people call it now, they all put Peng as one of the most important forces. There are 8 forces, right? Peng, Lü, Ji, An, Cai, Lie, Zhou, Kao. Also sometimes known as the 8 gates of Tai Chi. The 8 forces, but Peng is the one force that should exist in everything. And you can see that clearly from the form that they are, from the first motion, right? The moment they raise the hand, drop the hand, they do the first motion, can't really see very clear, but you can YouTube a Yang style form and you can see from the very first motion they do, Peng is there and is kept throughout the entire form. Now in modern days context, there are also Chen style practitioners who, they also talk about Peng and the 8 gates or the 8 forces of Tai Chi. Now it is uncertain whether the Chen family originally had the 8 forces, right? They say they do now. Right now they say they have the 8 forces from the beginning. But again, when Chen Fake came to Beijing and taught at first, based on those account of people who learn from him, he doesn't talk about the 8 forces. That's also one of the reasons why the Beijing people who was, the Taichi community in Beijing who invited Chen Fake initially thought that what he does was not Taichi. Even though eventually they are convinced to learn from him, a lot of them are still not quite convinced that what he does is Taichi. They just realize that he was a far better martial artist. So therefore, when you see someone who's better, you basically learn from them. It's as simple as that. I mean, later on, they also started calling it Chen style Taichi, starting from Chen Fake in Beijing. So I'm not saying that they never called it Chen style Taichi, but the reason they start calling it Chen style Taichi is because of lack of a better name, right? But if you really nitpick and strictly speaking look at the foundation that makes the style, is very different from Yang style and the derivatives of Yang style. So that's the first thing, right? So even though now Chen style, let's also talk about Peng, the expansion or the inflation force, depending on what translation you like to go with. You can't really see it in the form. I mean, you can argue, which I agree with, that when you hold out your hand, right, in a linear line, you still need to expand, right? Like I mentioned in my video on the fundamental forces, you show the expansion, each joint expand, even the finger expand, and once everything expand, you can hold on to it. You can almost push force on the arm, and it will just be absorbed by the rest of the frame rather than being tied on the muscle. So there is that, and that can be argued to be an expression of Peng. But if you look at strictly speaking the word itself, Peng is more like a force that inflates like a ball, and that quality you do not find in Chen style form. And I'm not saying that Chen style is inferior to Yang style because of this, right? I'm just trying to point out the fundamental difference, why the two should not be considered the same style, or why Chen style should be considered as a forefather to Yang Taichi or Taichi in general, but Chen style itself should not be considered as Taichi itself, and because the fundamental core is different. I mean, everyone changes what you learn, and it becomes your personal preference and your personal style. But the question you need to ask, right, is that how much do you change before you can no longer be called that style? Okay, how much similarity must you have to be considered a derivative of the same style? How much difference would you need to have before you consider it a completely different style? So based on that idea, I would argue that Chen style is the founder or the forefather of Taichi, but it is not Taichi itself, and therefore Chen family cannot be the founder of Taichi. And I'm gonna say this again, right? I have nothing against Chen style. I mean, I do have something against Chen village, the modern Chen village, right? But to me, Chen Fake was a great martial artist, and he was probably one of the best in Beijing at his time. I have the utmost respect for him and his disciples and his art. Okay, so this is purely from a technical perspective, not from a superior inferior complex. No, it's just that Chen style is great, Yang style is great, but the two are not really the same thing. Okay, I mean, there are also people who are more extreme on the other end of the spectrum who say that, yeah, Yang style don't have Chan Si Li at all, so therefore Yang style could not have came from Chen style. Yang Chen must have another teacher somewhere. Or, like the other story, Chen Changxing taught him something else that's not Chen style at all. Now, obviously, from all the historical evidence, we can see that is not the case. That's not true. But on the technical aspect as well, right? I don't know about other Yang style, but the Yang style that I practice, you can still see the remnants of the sock reading force or the spiral force. The body no longer does this, right? No longer have this rotation. But even when my hand is held up or when I'm doing something like that, the force itself is still rotate. We're just rotating in a different way, not in an obvious way like the Chen style, in a more subtle way. Almost like when you look at Xing Yi, you have the visible force, the hidden force, and the Zou force. Almost like in that sense that in the Yang style that I study at least, the spiral is still there. It's just internalized. You don't see it in the motion anymore. And in doing so, it is no longer a sock reading force. and they create different effect to what the Chen style martial art is intended and designed for. Okay, but my point is you can see the reminiscence and the influence from Chen style. It's just that Yang Luchan took it to another direction, took it to another approach, another understanding, and therefore founded a new system. Okay, so that is the point I'm trying to make. Now this is what I'm going to say regarding Chen style's claim, or the Chen family and the Chen village claim to being the founder of Taichi. I hope this all makes sense, and if you have any questions, something you're confusing with, or some suggestion, you're welcome to leave comments, and I'll definitely get back to you. If you enjoyed my video, please subscribe to my channel, and if you can, please support me on Patreon. That will be able to help me to constantly create quality content in the near future. And of course, all your Patreon support is greatly appreciated. So that will be all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, and the next part we're going to be looking at the Zhao Bao side of the clan, which is closely related to Chen family, right? So the Chen village and Zhao Bao village are neighboring villages, like we say in the past, and in recent years Zhao Bao is trying to get on top of the game and therefore discredit Chen's claim on the funding of Taichi. So next part we're going to talk about Zhao Bao in relation to Chen, right? So this video is purely on Chen, and the next one we're going to talk about Zhao Bao in relation to Chen. So stay tuned for the next video, and all have a great day and stay safe for this crisis. Hope you all stay healthy and safe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching TriEssence Martial Art channel.